my image just now. So this is my 3-0 screen. In fact, I didn't want any images, but because we were supposed to have one, I decided to have one. I'll get to it in a little while. Thanks everybody for coming today. In our last meeting, Friday, a couple of weeks ago, we were discussing a chapter from Jacqueline Goldsby's Spectacular Secret, Lynching in American Life and Literature. I was trying to flesh out a point made by Goldsby about the role of these photographs of racist murder in what, with Paul Virilio, one might call the logistics of perception. So I'll start there. Goldsby cites Jonathan Clare's Techniques of the Observer to remind us that the optical devices used in the 19th century were not invented in cultural vacuums, but were rather premised on conceptual structures that reflect points of intersections where philosophical, scientific, and aesthetic discourses overlap with mechanical techniques, institutional requirements, and socio-economic forces. Goldsby goes on to say, quote, thus, when considering lynching photographs and their social effects, we must approach them as artifacts that are more than transparent, self-evident documents of these events of racial murder. Indeed, lynching photographs encode more than the deadly operations of white racism. The images also inscribe how practices of racial violence were used to cultivate the experience and meaning of sight itself. This point resonates with my own nascent research project. With respect to practices of looking, there is a dialectic, if you will, between racism and photography. Goldsby is good for reasons. Goldsby is for good reasons more interested in analyzing the social dimensions, violences, and inclusions transmitted and enabled by the specific photographs and platforms she presents, and in seeing the whole heinous genre as a significant part of the making of American modernity, than she is interested in making general points about photography. However, we are to understand from her juxtaposition of her own claims with some McCrary's that general points about American modernity and hence about photography are inadmissible without a consideration of racial formations. The making of whiteness and blackness is mediated by the dynamics of photography and vice versa. The making of photography is mediated by the dynamics of whiteness and blackness. Thus, race relations, which is to say forms of racism, might well be not only at the heart of the meaning of sight, but inscribed in technological platforms that enable sight, and therefore in photography itself. Some questions. To what extent is photography itself a racial formation? What social dynamics have been subsumed in the reification that occurs under the sign of the camera? How might one think Martin Jay's dystopic regimes of modernity in terms of race? Or similarly, if Deleuze and Parnay are correct in asserting that a machine is historical and social, i.e. abstract, before it is technical, what kinds of statements can be made about photography that draw from and contribute to the work of critical race theory? If Stephen Heath could consider the cinematic apparatus as a dispositif, in his words, quote, the social and the technical as cinema, then can we return to the question of photography and the archive using the incredible momentum of the intellectual ferment of decolonization, black, minoritarian, queer, of color, subaltern, Marxist, feminist, global South scholarship to rethink the ontology of photography and other media platforms. Although there was no mention of cameras or photography in Harriet Jacobs' harrowing Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, written by herself, there appears within the narrative a mechanism that I would hypothesize shares some aspects of the abstract machine that necessarily precedes the instantiation of the concrete machines of photography. I'm speaking, of course, of Jacobs' prison, the crippling attic crawl space above her grandmother's house in which Jacobs hid from her slave masters, immobilized and unable to stand during a 7-year period from 1835 to 1842. Confined, as it were, in camera by the conjunction of vectors of colonialism, political economy, racism, slavery, and the law that granted to whites the legal right to hold black people as chattel, Jacobs, while under inconceivable physical duress, watches her own children grow up through a peephole she drilled in the shingle, unable to touch them, speak to them, or even let them know she is there as they face all the travails of growing up black under white supremacy. Through social means, Jacobs is converted into a recording device, disappeared from view, and forced to observe the world through a pinhole in a shingle. And yet she chooses this form of social and near physical death, imprisonment, over her option on the other side of the pinhole, slavery. Reduced as nearly as possible to pure observer on one side of the aperture, and to pure object on the other, this horrifying assemblage, this being in camera, requires the deprivation of one's rights to one's body, the deprivation which itself relies on the development of a particular dystopic regime. This regime is a matter of life and death. In a racist spectrometry, persons are measured by the chemical light absorption properties of their skin. Let's call it a kind of photographing. So this everyday photographing, so endemic to slavery in the United States and to racial formation itself, points towards an essence of photography somewhat different to that put forth by Roland Barthes in Camera Lucida, a text which, the writings of Cho Sandoval and Fred Moten notwithstanding, today still stands as a definitive statement on the ontology of the photograph. To cut to the chase, Barthes sets out to determine the essence of photography at any cost, and determines finally that a photograph's knowing, its unique quality, is precisely its that has beenness, in its indexical character. But what about the cost of this determination? For Barthes personally, this cost is twofold. First, there is the cost of pain. Barthes writes a book of mourning for the passing of his beloved mother. The photograph may be a way back to her. And then there is cost to Barthes' extraordinary intellectual career. The book is a kind of recantation, his admission that the realm of semiotics, which he spent the better part of his life elaborating, is not adequate to the deepest questions of life and mediation. However, there is yet another cost, and for the rest of us perhaps, it turns out to be the most important one. In Camera Lucida, Barthes provides a detailed description of his own experience of being photographed, during which he feels himself physically transformed. Quote, "Now once I feel myself observed by the lens, everything changes. I constitute myself in the process of posing. I instantaneously make another body for myself. I transform myself in advance into an image. And then, I don't know how to work my skin from within." His account of becoming an object before the lens, of being separated from the world by the play of the socio-technical dynamics on his skin, precisely echoes, albeit in apparent ignorance of the fact, Frantz Fanon's description of the fact of blackness, of coming under the white gaze calling France, a description which, when read in its entirety, seems to suggest the colonial roots of existentialism and existentialist visuality. Here is just a brief excerpt. "And then the occasion arose when I had to meet the white man's eyes. An unfamiliar weight burdened me. The real world challenged my claims. In the white world, the man of color encounters difficulties in the development of his bodily schema. On that day, completely dislocated, unable to be abroad with the other, the white man, who unmercifully imprisoned me, I took myself far off from my own presence, far indeed, and made myself an object. What else could it be for me but an amputation, an excision, a hemorrhage that spattered my whole body with black blood?" What then is the relationship between photography and modern racism? For it seems to me that something deeply hidden, repressed, or unthought adheres in the dispositif, that is, photographic technology. This dispositif would necessarily show connections between photography, racism, and political economy, three vectors of objectification, and ultimately should intersect with legal, psychoanalytic, imperialist, and sex-gender systems. After all, being photographed is described by Barthes as if it were a process of proprietary alienation. Quote, "The disturbance is ultimately one of ownership," he says, "and I invariably suffer from a sensation of inauthenticity. I am neither subject nor object, but a subject who feels he is becoming an object. I then experience a microversion of death. I am truly becoming a specter." Barthes also likened the captured light of the photograph to a carnal medium, the skin I share with anyone who has been photographed. The large-scale archival project might be to establish a parallel lived thus far between the mortification of the flesh before the lens and the mortification of the flesh under the white gaze, bolstered by the historico-economic violence of slavery and colonialism, are not merely analogous, but are mutually constituted. As a modest beginning, we can show that these parallel and seemingly autonomous regimes of race on the one hand and photographic visibility on the other are mutually constituted in part.